In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
Here we talk about the far right, their fellow travelers, and what they say to each other when they think we're not listening. The show is hosted by Daniel Harper and me, Jack Graham. We're both he, him. Be aware, we cover difficult, sometimes nasty subject matter, so content warnings always apply. Okay, and welcome back to I Don't Speak German. It's another news brief episode, and shit, they say 24 hours is a long time in politics, and it's been more than 24 hours since we spoke, but it feels like it's been a lot more than 24 hours since the last news brief episode. Daniel, how the hell are you out there?
I'm making it. I'm just been, kind of perusing Twitter more than I have in a while, but that's just the nature of any election year, really, and this election year 10 times as much because wow. The last episode of these we did was for the Trump assassination attempt / the JD Vance nomination, VP pick by Trump. And boy, that feels like last year by the standards of what's happened since then. So things, it turns out the Democratic Party can actually get things done when it means, maintaining centrist power base,
Well, I think Lenin said there are days when decades happen, and been feeling a little bit like that lately with American politics.
Definitely.
It kind of rhymes, doesn't it? The last episode, as you say, was the Trump assassination attempt and the naming of JD Vance as the Republican vice presidential candidate. And I don't know, it feels in a funny sort of way like Joe Biden's announcement that he wouldn't stand in the election, and it's only like 100 days away, isn't it?
Yep.
Followed by Kamala Harris's swift presumptive nomination. I mean, she's got all the delegates that she needs now for conference to be named, so she effectively is already the nominee. I don't know, it feels like it kind of rhymes. It feels like one is a shadowy reflection of the other, to quote Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. I think the whole thing with Biden, I think we got into this in the last episode, is like, in the last news brief episode, is my feeling was Biden should have resigned, or should have announced he was not going to seek re-election right after the midterms last year, early 2023, late 2022, something like that. It's like, okay, we won the midterms, we're going okay, it's now time, we're going to do a full, replacement. And it really, even when after that debate performance, even after the bad debate performance, my angle was like, look, it's definitely for the best if Biden steps down, or if Biden, allows someone else to run in his place. But at this point, it's just too late. It's just too late to you should have done it a year ago. And then they dithered for a month, and Biden announced immediately, literally in the announcement, he endorsed Harris, and Harris just wrapped up the nomination in 36 hours or so to broad acclaim. So, again, the Dems actually managed to pull this off, it looks like, at least for now. So yeah, it's pretty astonishing. It's pretty, I've been following American politics and presidential politics for, since I was a kid, since I was 12 years old. And this is probably the most substantive, this feels like the most substantive event of, all that time following politics. It really is remarkable that this turned out the way it did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been following American politics for quite a long time as well. I mean, as they say, America sneezes, Britain catches cold. So there's a direct, we have a dog in the fight, albeit maybe not a direct dog, but certainly we have dogs in your fights. But yeah, it's just so, American politics is just so much more fucking interesting and dramatic than British politics, So yeah, I've been fascinated with it as well. I feel like I've been on a real roll of getting shit wrong lately, because I decided in my head that Trump wasn't hit by that bullet because I just didn't buy it. And I've been looking into it, and he clearly was the lucky fucker. And then I decided that, I agreed. I think we basically agreed when we spoke about this last time that the only thing worse than Biden not quitting would be Biden quitting now,
Right.
And what I thought would happen just didn't happen. I mean, I maybe it's just a lifetime of being disappointed. Well, disappointed isn't the word, because that would imply a certain amount of hope. Being just shown the sheer determination of the Democrats to lose and never achieve anything of any value. But yeah, I assumed that if Biden was pressured into stepping down, then the party would. I mean, I thought that the big beasts in the party, Pelosi and Schumer and people like that, would try to sidestep Harris, and I didn't think Biden would endorse her. And I thought it would turn into a great big sort of bloody cat fight, and it would just look like chaos and panic and so on, and just doom them. But as you say, that's the exact opposite of what they ended up doing. So, well done, the Democrats, I suppose. That feels wrong coming out of my mouth somehow. That doesn't. Is that even grammatical?
Democrats, you acted like a professional political party for the first time in a long time, but it's not even that long, because if you remember 4 years ago, when Bernie Sanders looked like he was going to steamroll, they got their shit together then too. We got to stop Sanders. That was the key. Is Joe Biden was kind of everybody's fourth choice in the 2020 primaries, and he just kind of became everybody can, he's the cheese pizza. It's if you're everybody wants different toppings, and so when nobody can agree, you just get, okay, well, we're just going to have cheese then. And that cheese pizza ended up being just a little bit old, a little bit stale, a little bit not with it, and so we get the side of breadsticks instead. Sorry, this metaphor went ways I didn't intend to. Certainly don't mean to imply that Kamala Harris is just a side of breadsticks, but she is, she was the add-on we got with Joe Biden, and now she is very possibly going to be the president of the United States in a couple of months. So that is interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like they have a better shot now. I mean, the party seems energized. They've raised a huge amount of money. It's record money they've raised in mostly small donations, mostly from first-time donors. They've got thousands upon thousands of new volunteers. You've got thousands upon thousands of people registering to vote. You got the age range of the people volunteering now and registering is in the right sort of age range for what we want. It's younger people. And she plays well with the groups that are undecided and that the Democrats need. So, and there's already been a poll that has her ahead of Trump. There's others that have her still, tying or behind. And so, but she seems to be doing better. Polls are polls, but she seems to be doing better in polls. So things do look a little bit better than they did, this time last week. It just does look a little bit better, within the confines of the priority being to keep that fucking fascist raving monster out of the White House so that he can't institute Project 2025 this time round.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that interestingly, it doesn't, I mean, there's an element of it in which it's just, it's not going to be Joe Biden. And so people are energized again. Right. But there also is an element of people have really warmed to Kamala Harris. And I think that part of that is, she has more political experience now. She has a better team around her in 2024 than she had in 2020, where she didn't win a single delegate in the 2020 primaries. I mean, she dropped out. I think she dropped out before even voting happened. I can't remember the exact details of it, but she did not do well in 2020. And yet she is, she's winking it. She's doing regardless of how you feel about her, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, she's a remarkably competent and solid and, likable political candidate. When she stands up on stage and and gives her speeches, and, when she's, doing her appearances, it's, yes, this is plausibly presidential material here. And that neither Trump or Biden really look like presidential material in 2024, if you can be honest. Trump definitely not so. I mean, Biden is existing president, but he does not exude that presence. And I think Kamala Harris is managing to do so. And I think that as much as anything is kind of what's galvanizing her support right now. Although I'm sure there's been a lot of stuff behind the scenes as well in terms of, getting the donors involved, it was amazing how, so many elected representatives immediately endorsed. It was all right, it's Kamala. We're done. We don't need to decide. Whereas I think a lot of the smart prognosticators were definitely thinking, that this is going to be a slog-like process, that people were just not going to sign on to this. And I really didn't know what was going to happen, but the fact that it has, people have, kind of united behind her is, I think a positive, at least in terms of like, if you want to keep Trump out of the White House in 2024 or 2025, I think this is about the best it could have gone, honestly.
Yeah. And really there hasn't been any sort of dithering or fart-arsing about things, apart from like there were a couple of noises for about 5 minutes that Joe Manchin, of all people, was thinking about throwing his hat into the ring. He seemed, if that was true, then he obviously very quickly realized, nah, not a good idea. But I think what's probably going on there is like right-wing Democrat big donors,
Right.
Because there have been some big donors that are not mad keen on Kamala because she's too too left-wing for them. And of course, a lot of the pundits, they were doing the sort of, oh no, you must have a big, long, open process and a big argument about it at convention, because we want that, because that would be interesting to write about. So it's the only democratic thing to do. All these liberal pundits saying that, and of course, in the process, just agreeing basically with one of the Republicans' talking points that they've flailed around and chanced upon, which is the idea that this is in some way a sort of undemocratic thing. Whereas I think, again, this is going to be something we're going to be saying a lot. Whatever you think about Kamala Harris,
right,
I think there is clearly a reflection here. The sequence of events, what we've seen happen around her candidacy, it reflects, a certain groundswell of grassroots enthusiasm for her, or at least what people think she is, or take her to mean.
Yeah, I mean, right now what she's doing is energizing the Democratic base. Like she's taking these, the people who are like reliably vote Democrat, who go to conventions, who go to these, events, who are, not just like left of center, who are not just, progressive or whatever, but people who are really like Democrats with a capital D, who like really consider the party to like represent them. She is fully on board with like just serving them, the hottest takes of serving the reddest of meat. It's the she went out in her first big appearance, her first big speech after Biden, revealed he wasn't going to run. She's very openly talking about abortion and using the word abortion, and in so many words, and like pushing for, we're gonna codify Roe, or I can't remember exactly the words she uses, but she's very much speaking on those issues in a way that like Biden really couldn't. And I think that that's important, not just because of his age and the fact that he's just tired, but Biden, one of the things that made him like the nominee in 2020 is that he has always been like Mr. Democrat. He has always been like, I go where the party goes. I toe the party line. I am with it, 100% of the way. I always vote, I am, and that's how he became, such a long running senator, and how he became the vice president, to be honest, is like, he is just, I am Mr. Democrat. And what that means is, Joe Biden is a pretty conservative Catholic guy, like a lowercase c conservative Catholic guy. I'm sure he does not like abortion. I'm sure he does not, like it to be legal, but he knows this is the party. This is how we go. This is the thing we're doing. And so he would support it, but not like speak openly about it, not really go for it wholeheartedly. And I think Kamala is much more willing to, she is a more progressive candidate. She is, she served as a senator in California. She's much younger, obviously. And she is, pushing a much more like 21st century Democratic, progressive agenda, and like using those terms and being able to, really speak to the younger audiences is something that's important for her. I will say, just to, the other thing about Joe Biden being Mr. Democrat is that after the 2020 election, after he won, he brought in people he brought Bernie Sanders and he brought AOC and he brought, some of these people from all parts of the party to, help determine the governing agenda. And I think that that's part of the success of his presidency, is that there is, he was able to listen to people who were further to his left. He didn't go nearly far enough, of course, but a lot of the positive things come from that. And I hope that Kamala has, kind of learned that lesson as well, but is just more willing to like speak to, again, the younger generations and people who are, the future of the party and not the past of the party.
No, I very much agree. I mean, I think, I very much don't want to be misunderstood when I say this, because everything is relative. But I think Biden has been the best US president of my lifetime.
Yeah.
And that is kind of a reflection on just how bad the rest of them were, given that, there's a one word thing that everything good you can say about the Biden presidency the two syllables Gaza, just erase it. It's just gone.
Absolutely.
It's gone.
Absolutely.
And this was a point that I wanted to hit last time that we didn't get to hit, and that was my fault because I got the tone of the last episode wrong. I was too jokey about it, so we didn't get to this. The thing after the assassination where everybody was just united on this, there's no place for violence in politics thing. That is, I mean, I don't know about you, but to me that is stomach churning hypocrisy. While the American government is funding and arming and supporting a literal genocide that is literally underway at the moment, and the arguments about why you can't just not do that. I mean, obviously we have to do that. You can't not do that. They're all about politics. They're all about process. They're all about, the art of the possible and diplomacy and all this stuff. I mean, aside from the fact that they preside over a system which is just made of structural violence and social murder. But it's true nonetheless that everything's double-edged, isn't it? Because he ended the war in Afghanistan. In the process, of course, he abandoned loads of people in Afghanistan to the Taliban. You have women who are now back under Taliban rule. But he ended the forever war, bringing manufacturing back to America, to an extent anyway. That's an example of a kind of, that's sort of a productivist, populist capitalism that I don't approve of. But it is a rollback of neoliberalism. Some of the climate stuff, I mean, the Biden administration has acted on climate in the way that really no previous American administration has on climate reform. It's nowhere near good enough, and it needed to start 30 years ago, but it's a foot in the door. So it's really, when I say that Biden's the best president of my lifetime, that's more a depressing thing to me than a happy thing, because it's like, Jesus, really?
Yeah,
this is the best?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with the political violence stuff. I mean, I feel like you don't even have to go to, the ongoing genocide in Gaza. I mean, you could even just speak to, policing and immigration and, there's violence all the time.
Biden's border policy is savage, racist, atrocious.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what they mean when they say, there's no place for violence in politics is, well, we are the dainty kings on top and we get to decide for everybody else, but you don't go after the general in the back. You go after the foot soldiers on the ground, you guys kill each other. We have a mutual respect among kings, and so therefore we don't, we have rules that we abide by. And then if the rest of you get a little bloodied, that's just the cost of us doing our lofty goals, our lofty ambitions, our lofty high-ended ideals. That's our right to do so. And so that's what they mean when there's no place for violence in politics. When, politics is about violence. I mean, I don't want to sound like a libertarian. I don't want to sound like Chris Cantwell, when I say that. But, ultimately what we're talking about is the maintenance of, at least in terms of, liberal bourgeois politics, we're talking about the maintenance of borders and the maintenance of a state that, has its own ends in mind and is not about like peacefully coexisting and resolving differences. It is about the imposition of power and the imposition of violence upon the violations of norms. So, that is what it is. And so, I mean, to me, it's like, I meant to get into it last episode, but it's like, well, that isn't what we're really talking about here. And so we'll just ignore that for now. But no, I completely agree with you that, going, oh, there's no place for violence from Republican politicians. And then, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And like, I agree. It's 100% agreed on that. So, yeah.
On that subject, it is remarkable how little impact. I mean, I think we both reacted at the time of the assassination attempt and the serious wounding and death of members of the audience in Butler, was it? Where it happened? Butler, Pennsylvania.
Butler, Pennsylvania, yep.
Yeah. We both, I think, reacted when we heard that news with just oh, great. You just handed it to Trump, or, just nearly handed it to Trump. It is amazing, isn't it, how little impact that has had. I mean, it's difficult to think of any political candidate, like even like unpopular political candidates, like, you put them in that situation, there would be a groundswell of sympathy. There would be an outpouring of public. People don't give a shit about it happening to Trump, do they? They just don't fucking care. I mean, apart from his base, obviously. But
sure, I watched a bit of his convention speech. I did not watch the full thing, but I watched the first like 20 minutes or so, and he's talking about his experience of the bullet whizzing by his head, of being hit in the ear, etc. And it cuts to the crowd, and people are literally like sitting and like crying, about this story. And I get that. I'm, like obviously it's we don't want anyone to be shot in the head. Like that's I think we should say that out loud, right? But at the same time, there's this like veneration of the leader that this it's not even
they would be reacting that way if he was telling a story about his Diet Coke being too warm one day. The public
true.
at large.
That's true. No, I think where I was going with that, and I thank you for kind of reminding me, is people have already decided how they feel about Trump. People are already kind of there. I do wonder if he had been like shot in the gut and been like hospitalized or something. If that I'm in. I think it's easy if it's just like the ear. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of, even though that's an inch from his brain space, I think it's a little bit easier to kind of shrug it off a little bit, because it's not like he doesn't seem like he was like that visibly injured. And I think a lot of people just don't believe it was real, which I don't think that's true. I mean, it's obviously a real event that happened. So
sure. I mean, at my most conspiracy theorist about this, I thought somebody shot at him and it narrowly missed him, and he got hit by a chip of something from something that was hit. That's what I thought happened. Although I now acknowledge that I was wrong about that. He was actually hit by a bullet.
There was some initial reporting that was like, oh, he got hit by like a chunk of the teleprompter hit him in the, like that was kind of reported early on, but it was never confirmed. And I think it was demonstrated that the teleprompters were not damaged. And I think
for me, it was the fact that they wouldn't release any of the medical reports from the hospital and stuff. But as other people have pointed out, there could be all sorts of reasons for that. They could have got him in there and done a full health check and discovered that he's got diabetes or a heart murmur or God knows what, or maybe he just didn't want them to so that he could play it up.
Well, and like there's plenty of legal reasons not to release medical records, and even of like presidential candidates. Like I get that, I
was just having a wingnut half hour.
I would actually be amazed if he doesn't have diabetes, frankly. And as someone with diabetes, I don't say that negatively. I just say, like, given his age and his diet, like, the amount of, I know he drinks Diet Coke, but the amount of like Pizza Hut and cheeseburgers and stuff he eats, it's it would be amazing if his blood sugar was better than mine. Let's just put it that way.
And apparently one of the things that is raising his heart rate and blood sugar at the moment is Vance regret. I mean, there's a lot of chatter about that in the media. Yeah. Do you think there's anything to that?
I think he was planning to steamroll Biden and having Vance in there, and Vance versus Kamala, and if there's hypothetically a vice presidential debate, etc. Trump is often like, he picks people based on like central casting, like we've said this before.
He's very impulsive and very shallow.
Yeah. One of the things he didn't like about Steve Bannon, one of the reasons that Steve Bannon didn't last longer in the White House after having helped get him into the White House, was just that Steve Bannon was kind of slovenly and unkempt, and, he didn't look the part of a chief advisor. He didn't clean up and put on a suit. He was just kind of disheveled. And Trump is very much that guy. And JD Vance puts on that air of, I am the heir apparent. I am the person waiting in the wings to take over for your movement, and, despite the fact that he was, one of the virulent, never Trumpers in 2016 and, said some very accurate things about Donald Trump, not in the way I would have said it, but, very accurate things.
He compared him to opioids, and that's coming from a guy whose whole trademark is that he's from the Appalachians.
Yeah, well, we can definitely talk more about JD Vance in another episode, but no, I think that there is this, like, you put your finger on it, there's always been this thing of like Donald Trump is just kind of a big kid. He's very impulsive. He's very, he just goes with like the last thing that's been said to him, and he just sort of agrees with it. And I think he picks JD Vance because JD Vance was the one who like most successfully shoved his nose into his rectum, right? In the weeks and months before he had to pick. And, he was, and that's what it took. But like, I do think that like, he's got a little buyer's remorse. And I don't even know that it's, I mean, we don't know who Kamala's going to pick for VP, but I don't know that any other pick would be better than Vance, honestly, for Trump. If I were trying to, consider it, I think that the buyer's remorse thing is just
got a great field to choose from, has he?
No, he doesn't.
Apparently, I heard from somewhere that he was leaning towards Doug Burgum just because he wanted access to the guy's money, but who knows?
I mean, this kind of goes to like bigger picture, what we're talking about in this episode is that the Democratic Party has now indicated that in matters of their existence, not in matters of policy, mind you, not in matters of like actually making things better for the people who vote for them, but in the matter of, winning elections, in the matter of picking candidates in 2020 and now in 2024, they have shown a remarkable willingness to be a party and to like actually act like a professional political organization. The Republican Party was completely destroyed by Donald Trump in a lot of ways in terms of its like structural things, because Donald Trump just does whatever Trump wants. In 2020, they didn't even have a party platform. Their party platform was whatever Trump says. Like they didn't even put out a platform. And so like, and in terms of getting things wrong in 2020, like the minute that Fox News called Pennsylvania for Biden, I thought, okay, this is the end of Donald Trump, because like Fox News has gotten off. The RNC is not going to, like, he's done because he doesn't have the institutional support anymore. We did an episode about this.
That we did
an episode about this. Yeah, no. And that just, it just wasn't the case. I had greater faith in the evil of the Republican Party than was warranted, apparently. And the Republicans have no idea what to do without Trump. They tried DeSantis, they tried Abbott in Texas, they've tried a whole bunch of these guys, and they don't have the star power, they don't have the juice to get through it, to actually like get to the main stage. And they just can't compare to Trump. I do feel a little bit like Obama was just this like phenomenon, right? And again, regardless of how you feel about his policies, because I feel very badly about many of his policies, but he was a political phenomenon. He showed up and just like he steamrolled Hillary Clinton in 2008. That was supposed to be her year to win. And he just ran right over him, and ran right over McCain too. McCain was another one who was, full on. He had the support of a whole establishment. He had years and years of, building up his resume to be this, and the war hero history, etc. He was on Parks and Recreation. He did, all this stuff, and, chatty with Jon Stewart, and Obama just crushed him. And I feel like that Trump is that for the Republicans. And the irony is that, Donald Trump is not, like, he's not going to live that much longer. He's 78. So, it would be hard for me to imagine if he loses, then he's going to come back again in 4 years. I just think he's just, he will just, he's already kind of incoherent and tired, but like, he's just going to be like even more so in another 4 years. So, I don't know. It's just hard to know how to think of like what the Republican Party does after Trump.
When you try to think about it, you're just juggling different versions of the impossible, aren't you? You're just, because he's never going to go away at this point. Like if he loses in November, God willing, because if he doesn't, they will start trying to implement that fucking project. And that's not Trumpism, that's the Republican Party. Because one of the things,
that's the Heritage Foundation, to be fair. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. But this is kind of what you were saying. Trump killed the Republican Party. Trumpism / MAGA, whatever you want to call it, it's kind of invaded and taken over the Republican Party in a way that's startlingly like the way fascist parties take over bourgeois governments through, like the cooperation and helping them into power of like conservative elites, etc. You can map the process of the Nazis being adopted into the German the democratic governmental system onto the way in which MAGA got into and took over the Republican Party. But the thing is, that can't happen unless it's already in there. Trumpism and everything that has sort of come to fruition through Trumpism, like the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation and that whole sort of complex of dark money and all this stuff. It's happened because Trumpism is just the expression of what the Republican Party is on a deep level. It's not an alien invading organism that's attached itself and taken over. It just is that on a deep level. It's erupted from the inside and taken it over. It's the id of the Republican base, is what it is. It's the angry. It's the rampaging Hulk to the Mitch McConnell's Bruce Banner. It's kind of the way you might think of it, and that it's the same organism. And I don't know, like what's fascinating is that like if you look at what Trump did in this first term, he did a bunch of shit to aggrandize himself and to enrich himself. He did a bunch of stuff that he liked. He went after his personal enemies with animosity, but ultimately he governed very much like he just let the Republican heads just kind of decide what the overall policy was going to be.
the big thing, I mean, the major thing, like the absolutely terrifying thing about, the first Trump presidency is that he got 3 Supreme Court nominations and put like, these are, the Heritage Foundation gave him a list of like 20 guys or 20 people, and he picked 3 of them off that list. And he said, I'm just going to pick 3. I'm just going to pick off that list. That's my list of people I'm picking from for the Supreme Court. And that's pretty much how they governed together, how the system held itself together for 4 years is, the Republican Party, like the party heads are like pushing for like their agenda, their standard agenda. And then Trump is just like kind of making it happen using his star power, frankly, and using, and then he goes off on the side and, does a whole bunch of corruption shit. So, there was a really great podcast, the Trump Inc. And it was like one of these like NPR, I forget exactly, I think it was NPR produced. And they started like from the beginning of the Trump presidency and ran until like the last day that before he left office, just going through all the like business, all the ways in which the Trump businesses were entwined in the Trump presidency and the government. And some of these are like minor examples and some of them are like very large examples, but Trump was definitely like going through and enriching himself through the entire time, often in petty ways. And just like, they had to, like, the Secret Service had to stay at one of his hotels and pay him the privilege for, $1,000 a night hotel room. And so he's making a few grand off of hotel rooms for his security team. I mean, yeah, that's corruption, but this is like, of all the things you could do as president of the United States to enrich yourself, like that just seems, it's just the most petty, small-minded,
petty.
Like, yeah.
That's Trump, because Trump is a lot of things. He is a fascist, not an intellectual or an ideological fascist, just a kind of an emotional, instinctive fascist. He's just basically he's one of the stormtroopers that somehow got put in charge of the party because Hitler fell over one day and cracked his skull open. It's like, but he is a fascist. He has that politics. He's a rapist and a racist and a misogynist and a bigot and all these things, and an authoritarian, and power mad and da 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 da. But what he is on the most fundamental level is a petty spiv. He's a crook. What he is on the most basic level of what Trump is, he is just a petty crook, and he's not even very good at that. No. And that guy was given the most powerful job on the planet for 4 years.
Yeah, and possibly for another 4. I mean, and this is kind of where I land on, what would another 4 years of Trump look like? It will look like he will go after all the people who prosecuted him and who persecuted him in his mind, but all the people who, like, all the judges, all the lawyers, everybody who went after him,
shut down
legally,
all the legal cases against him.
Well, he's going to all that stuff gets shut down the second he's elected. I think, like, at this point, it's too late. Like, it's done. There's no way anything is going to impact him, and he will never serve a day behind bars for anything that he has done. It's just like, if you wanted that to happen, you had to start like 4 years ago. I'm sorry, but like, he's going to go after all those people. He's going to go after all the media that didn't like him. He's going to go after, he's going to, with a righteous fury. Like, he has a righteous fury towards those people who have been putting him through the ringer for the last year. But, in terms of his governing style, like, yeah, he's going to turn that back over to the people in charge, the people at the Heritage Foundation. And so that's where a lot of the real fear of, like, because in 2020, he didn't have or in 2016, he didn't have an apparatus to help him govern. He didn't have like people that he could like put into these positions in the way that, like, and in 2024, 2025, he definitely will. They have built an organization to do that. So in 2020 and 2016, they gave him, we're going to take over the Supreme Court. Like, that's the job in the next 4 years. The next 4 years of Trump, if he gets elected again, it's going to be, the whole government's going to look like our Supreme Court does now. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying, because the Supreme Court is about as bad as it's been in 150 years. I mean, like, you could say the Dred Scott court was worse, but that's saying something, right? That's what a future Trump presidency is going to look like, which, is why it's really important to beat him, using the electoral methods that we have available. And so, yeah, Kamala Harris instead of Joe Biden, this feels like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. It does look a little bit more hopeful that, America won't turn fully into effectively a fascist dictatorship run by Leonard Leo and Clarence Thomas and people like that.
Right,
At least
exactly.
not this year. Maybe 4 years' time. because if whoever the next Republican president is, they will be trying to institute Project 2025, even if it's Nikki Haley or Chris Christie or, the most moderate fucking Republican you can think of. And I know the people I just named aren't moderates, but take the most moderate imaginable Republican president. They will be the structure of the movement will be trying to do the same thing again, Trump or no Trump.
Absolutely. I mean, even like George W. Bush. George W. Bush was the kind of dummy cowboy who was, kind of came out there, and like the structure of the presidency, just like the people around him, created all these like awful policies. I'm not defending George W. Bush. Despicable man. Probably, I would argue the worst president of my lifetime. I think W was worse than Trump. People would kind of yell at me about that, but I think W was worse than Trump.
He's certainly got a bigger body count. I mean, Trump's body count was high enough, but yeah, I think W's is higher. Yeah.
Yeah. And with like much less, I mean, I don't want to say less justification, because not that Trump had justification, but like I think some people are too young to really remember how bad W was. And I think there's a sense in which, once he's out of office and he's just like the old man, the old grandpa painting in his Texas cabin or whatever.
Handing Michelle Obama a Werther's original.
Oh my God. Oh, that's just like, and that's another one of those things of like, oh, we're all friends at the top level. We're all, we oppose each other in public, but ultimately we're all of the same team. We're all in the same class, The
ruling class definitely believe in the theory of class. They know it's true.
They do. Yeah, no, I mean, Sonia Sotomayor, best or second best justice we have on the court. I mean, I think Ketanji Brown Jackson, arguably a better justice, but personal friends with Antonin Scalia up until the day he died. They were buddies. They were warm to each other. They were friendly. We can like what these people say in public, and we can like what they do on their papers, and we can approve of them and vote for them, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, they're all on the same team, and they know it.
We've talked a little bit about how Donald Trump governed. I mean, I think the point you just made was brilliant, because I think you can map it directly on, because these things so often rhyme. You can map Trump getting to basically just loot the government and use his position to make money for 4 years in return for Mitch McConnell and the Federalist Society getting their 3 justices. You can map that directly onto W, who was allowed to just be the president for it was 8 years in the end.
He was 8 years, yeah.
And in return, the neoconservatives got the wall that they desperately wanted. And Obama in government. I mean, one of the things that this whole thing around Kamala, it's very reminiscent of Obama's. You were talking about Obama's, just destroying Hillary Clinton in the primaries and getting the nomination. It's very reminiscent of that again. It's a similar sort of tidal wave of Democrat activist grassroots enthusiasm for a candidate who kind of looks incredibly progressive, certainly compared to what they've had before. What do you think? I mean, assuming she wins, which, God willing, because whatever you think of her, she's better than American fascism now. Assuming she wins, what will a Kamala Harris presidency look like? What will it be like?
I mean, I hate to say I don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, I'm not an expert on Kamala Harris as a person or as a candidate. I have not made it my duty to follow her that closely. So, grain of salt and all that. There is a part of me that thinks you're going to see, it's going to be like Biden, but more. I think there's going to be a reticence to kind of rock the boat too hard on that stuff. I think she will certainly be a better speaker and certainly kind of a better advocate in public for, sort of democratic priorities and that sort of thing. But do I think that like the bloodshed in Gaza is going to be reduced significantly? No. She's made some slightly progressive noises about it.
She stayed away from Netanyahu's address to Congress, Daniel.
Well,
so problem solved.
Sorry, I thought you were going to a slightly different place there, but yes, no, it's a very performative thing of like not showing up to the damn thing, but like it's still like very much, we stand with Israel 100%. And as I think even today or yesterday we released a statement about like protesters in New York City, pro-Palestine protesters and violence and all that sort of thing. And it's just like you're not like. The imperial presidency it creates war. It just does that. Again, the joke I always make about Joe Biden is like he puts softer pillows in the cages where the kids are being kept. Like I think the metaphor would be
pretty much literally true. It's not even a joke.
It's literally true. Yeah, no, and I think Kamala in the very, so like, it'll be a kinder, gentler genocide. It'll be, you know, there will be more hand wringing and a softer voice. And this is something that we had to do, or et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think the policy is going to fundamentally change. And, you know, I think domestically, and this is where I really don't like to shit in people's cereal on this, right? Like, this is not a fun place to be. Like, people are really excited about Kamala Harris right now. And there's a lot of, even in places, and I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but even in places that you would expect to have a little bit more history on this, a little bit more perspective, there's a lot of like, well, hey, you know, Kamala wasn't really a cop. I mean, she was a prosecutor, but like, she was a progressive prosecutor. And, you know, yeah, she like put a whole bunch of people were convicted of drug offenses when she was in there, but most of them didn't serve any jail time. And so, like, I mean, come on, what are we saying here? I mean, like, yes, she's not the absolute, like, she's not like Goebbels. All right. I get that. No, you know, but we don't actually have to like whitewash her record.
She did do some good stuff. She tried some sex offenders and some bank stuff. And yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, one of the things that's like is the Sesta Fosta thing. I don't know how much you know about this, but this is effectively, God, I'm going to get the details of this wrong, and I apologize to my sex worker friends for you know,
bad online sex worker legislation.
Yeah, it basically makes it impossible in many cases for sex workers to advertise safely, and it makes it impossible to like vet clients and that sort of thing in some complicated ways. And it was known that this was going to happen. And Kamala Harris is one of the like fundamental, like top person, one of the top people who really like set that in motion. And so she gets a lot of credit for that. Like I think I do not like Kamala Harris. I'm going to be honest here. I think she is an appealing candidate right now. And I think that a lot of the things I don't like about her, you know, I don't like the fact that she was a prosecutor. I don't like the fact that she did a lot of this shit. That's going to play very positively. And a lot of the stuff that like the kind of those capital D Democrats I was talking about is, you know, yeah, you send the cop after the felon Don, and you know the cop is gonna get rid of him.
Rhetorically, that is good.
It's very savvy marketing. It's just like, you know, okay, great, I'm happy. I'll get on board if it means that she wins and we don't have another 4 years of Trump. Okay, I'm willing to take that. I will accept that. But at the same time, I really hope that like leftists and progressives and, you know, people who might be listening to my voice are not. Have your fun, enjoy Kamala's victory, hypothetical victory. I do hope she wins, but don't take your eyes off of like the material reality of the world that we're living in and of her record. And I think that's as important as anything is, you know, we just have to keep that in mind. We're allowed to be excited that Joe Biden is not going to doom us to either a loss or 4 more years of Joe Biden. Like, I'm very happy about that. And I'm happy that Kamala is electorally succeeding right now, and she's doing well in the polls. We don't know what's going to happen in November. Certainly, you know, right now there's a new shininess that she gets to, you know, bask in, but we just don't know what's going to happen in November.
You likened her to breadsticks earlier. What do you make of this coconuts thing that everybody's going on about?
Oh God, I mean, it's one of those things where like,
I thought coconuts was taken. I thought that was Tulsi.
Yeah, coconut mommy, I think is what like the Nazis were calling her for a while. Yeah, because coconuts are indigenous to Hawaii. Well, they're found in Hawaii, but they're not. I know coconuts are broader than Hawaii. Don't believe me. Yeah, I mean, apparently, and again, I haven't followed Kamala Harris like that closely. Apparently, she had like a viral clip in which she said something like, you know, well, I didn't fall out of a coconut tree, you know, which was, you know, meant to be like, you know, that's like a saying that her mom used to say, you know, like when she was a kid. And you know, she was like recounting a larger anecdote, but then it gets chopped down to like coconut tree.
If you watch the full clip, it's actually kind of cool. The point she's making is kind of like everybody has a context. You know, everybody exists in the context of like generations before and the history that went before them. It's for somebody like her, it's kind of deep. Really?
Yeah,
I kind of like it, I have to admit.
No. Yeah, I mean, she says a lot of cool things. I just want her to enact those things and not enact the terrible things. That's it, you know, like, you know, it's the way I feel about Obama. It's like, yeah, he said a lot of.
That's Daniel Harper's politics. Can we have good things and not bad things?
Yeah,
please?
No, I know it's a horribly sophisticated rubric that I'm putting on here, you know, but like, no. I think we're wrapping up, and I did want to, you know, just one more point I wanted to make, and this is just relative to the announcement and to the kind of the timing, is that Joe Biden got COVID right before, like he had COVID when this announcement was made, I believe.
Yes.
And it would not surprise me. As you know, I've had COVID once. I am much younger than Joe Biden. COVID knocked me out for 2 weeks, and it would not surprise me that getting COVID. I think he's had it before. Getting it again, like after the debate performance, and like in that, it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the impetus of the decision, because every indication we're getting, at least from the reporting that's happened, and who knows how accurate this is and what's being like fed to people and what's real, but the reporting that we've seen is that this was kind of a last minute decision, that like he didn't tell Harris until like Saturday, and then he announced it Sunday, and he announced to his office, like, you know, he read the statement to them 1 minute before he posted it on Twitter, or it was posted on Twitter for him. So COVID did one good thing in this world, you know, that he got sick, and he was like, oh, fuck this. That's of all the terrible things that have happened because of COVID. If Joe Biden getting it and just going like, all right, fuck it. I can't do this anymore. All right. COVID won. Okay. 1 point for COVID. I'm with you.
You heard it here first, folks. Daniel Harper. I like COVID-19. COVID-19 is good.
COVID-19 is good. That's exactly. Somebody clip that, please, and put it on my tombstone. No.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
That was a bit of reporting, and I didn't see anybody really putting 2 and 2 together on that one in quite the same way. And I mean, you know, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, this is all pure speculation, but
that sounds pretty convincing to me. Coupled with, like, I mean, he was just sequentially stabbed in the back by everybody. Pelosi stabbed him in the back. Schumer stabbed him in the back. You know, his position was just made untenable.
Well, and this is the fascinating thing, is that like he was standing tall on this. He did not want to leave, and he believed, I am the only person who can beat Trump. And I think that there's this cussedness to him where, you know, and I think that that's honestly his most appealing quality, is this kind of like, you know, he doesn't back down. He does have a ramrod spine when he wants to, and he will get tough with people. He gets tough with his own voters. I mean, you know, we saw that in the 2020 primaries, in which he's, you know, like offering a push-up contest against some guy or whatever. I mean, it's like, it's remarkable. I think that all of that really just, I think those things were not the thing that made him change. I think I did see some reporting that the donors, like, were not behind him. They were really not supporting him, and they were not going to give him the money.
So it's the money.
You know?
Yeah.
But then again, I also saw, and this is before the Kamala kind of anointment, that Kamala was also kind of like not in the good graces of these people. And it's simple as like not taking meetings with them, and not, you know, just not kissing their feet and not kissing their asses in the same way that like other Democratic.
You're making me like her more.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, and so it wouldn't surprise me if one of the reasons that he stepped down was that as well. I mean, it's not just COVID, obviously. It's probably like a whole slew of things, but I do wonder how much was going on behind the scenes of like Kamala going in that last day of being like, all right, look, I know I will work with you, you know, and kind of kissing the ring a little bit in order to, like, because that you know, that bum rush of people supporting her did not come out of nowhere. That had a, you know, and I don't think you had to be like a conspiracy theorist to believe that, yeah, there was something going on behind the scenes, because there's no way the Democrats got that much shit in order in, you know, 24 hours without a bunch of, there were some calls behind the scenes, I promise you.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true, but I also do get a feeling of like the movement being ahead of the leadership here. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, again, Gaza, but with all credit to Biden, one of the great thing he did was that he immediately and completely unreservedly endorsed her. Like a couple of seconds after he quits, he says, "It's Kamala."
I mean, it's in the letter. In the letter that he posted on Twitter, he endorses Kamala in the last line. Like, it's like, I'm gone. Kamala's my pick. Go. And so there was no.
I didn't think he'd do that, but he did do it. It was the right thing to do. And I think like the party membership and the grassroots were just instantly there. And I do get this sense of Pelosi and Schumer and the other rather cynical big beasts kind of going, yeah, no, I'm on board. Yeah, Kamala. Yeah, Kamala.
Yeah.
One last thing then.
He said Columbo
around.
like. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one more thing. They've been flailing around trying to find something to attack her with. I mean, we mentioned the rather pathetic, it's undemocratic. The Democrats have done a coup. Biden was elected in the primaries. They can't do this. We're going to sue them thing. That's obviously not going to pan out. And obviously there's been an avalanche, a tidal wave, a pyroclastic flow just covering everybody in the Pompeii that is the United States. with racism and sexism, albeit in mostly dog whistle form, DEA pick and stuff like that. Obviously, down to like, I can't remember the guy's name, but some prominent Christian nationalist just made a speech or a statement or something where he says, "Oh, she's the spirit of Jezebel," which is not just sexist, but it's also incredibly racist. There's an article. If I can find the article I read, I'll put it in the show notes about the racist background to that thing, the Jezebel thing. But it's been rather amusing, I have to admit, watching them run around like Jesse Waters and Sean Hannity and all those fuckers running around like headless chickens trying to find something. And the best they seem to have come up with so far is she's got an annoying laugh, which I don't think is true, and she wants to ban plastic straws, which fucking hey, good, ban plastic straws. I'm sure they'll come up with something better. What do you think they'll come up with? Aside from the obvious, which is just an avalanche of racism and sexism. I mean,
it doesn't have to be true for them to like use it ultimately. I think that really what they're going to do is they're going to like, in the same way that they did like that Joe Biden is just like, that he's a criminal. He's both a criminal mastermind and like an old man who like can barely, speak. I think that the big thing with Kamala is that she's not serious, that she's not, but I think that's what kind of the laughing Kamala thing is supposed to be. They're going to take every, memed thing from the last 4 years of her, kind of looking like she's on like some pretty good uppers. And that's just going to like play in perpetuity for the next, 4 years if she wins.
She hasn't got her own biological children as well.
Yeah.
That's another thing they've been on about.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I think even JD Vance was on that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because he's basically just a Fox News host who's been elevated above his station. So
right, no, he's a Fox News host, i.e., vice presidential candidate. Like it's the same group of people at this point, right?
In 2024,
yeah. No, I think they're gonna try. I think it's gonna be like she's not serious. She's an airhead. She's like that's the sort of thing that they're going to try. Again, we've kind of touched on this, but like Trump just has a certain ceiling, and I think that this is what the assassination attempt kind of told us is that. You're right. Like he didn't get a huge bump. He didn't get like 60, 70%, approval rating at because people are sick of him. People know exactly who he is. And if you're either on his side or you're not at this point, and I think there are people who will hold their nose and vote for him because they don't like Kamala Harris or, like whatever. But, I think that like the reality is that they're just going to have to like, they can't make her seem less serious than Donald Trump because Donald Trump, for everything bad that we've said about Joe Biden, for everything that we've said negative about Joe Biden, Donald Trump, he could never get a coherent sentence out. Like he doesn't even make sense when he talks half the time. Whenever there was I believe it was a British reporter. It might've been like somewhere in Central Europe, but there was a reporter who like during kind of the final days of Trump's presidency, had come in to just follow, to just be a correspondent, following Trump around. And, the paper actually he actually transcribed exactly what Donald Trump said and not what reporters wished he had said or thought he said, and so when you get all the ums and ahs and you get all the, the circumlocutions and you get all the stuff going nowhere, and then you just put that on paper, he is like incoherent. And it's not like I do that sort of thing too. I do malapropisms. I do all sorts of stuff. I am fully aware that I am not like,
I'll do,
but I am able to get like coherent points across and I am able to speak in a way that other people can understand me without you having to like read between the lines and think what you wish I had said. Donald Trump is just not capable of doing that. He goes off in his own, unless he is very tightly scripted, he goes off into La La Land, like on a regular basis.
Yeah. I mean, people say, why does he do? Because he basically has two modes. He has just deranged blithering. Well, what he has is bits. He's like a stand-up comic. He goes from place to place and he just does the same bits or routines over and over again. He's got the weightlifting routine. He's got the shark and the battery routine. And he's just got these same bits that he does over and over again. It's like if you Google like Bill Hicks and, when you find the first 4 videos of Bill Hicks routines on YouTube, you'll hear the same routines over and over again because he goes from one place to another, and he does the same 3 or 4, 5, 6 routines. Trump does that. All his speeches are just this series of routines.
To be fair, political speeches are very, that's how you write political speeches. Like having that mode is completely normal for a presidential candidate, just to be clear.
But we are talking about routines and not actual stuff about policy or ideas or history or anything like that. We're talking about stories, basically funny stories or funny situations or things that he thinks are funny anyway. He has that mode, and then he has whinging. That's the rest of it. The rest of it is just whining. It's whining about the media and whining about the politicians and whining about the court cases. He's just a whiny, complainy old baby. That's all he is. And that's not gonna, his base like the whining because it involves him saying mean things about the people they hate. But that's not gonna, nobody's gonna be inspired by that. It's boring. It's pathetic.
No, absolutely. I agree completely. All we can say is he won in 2016. He lost in 2020. Biden was going to be a toss up. And I thought after the assassination attempt, I think, okay, it's his to lose now. It's not his to lose now. Like, I think that like Kamala has certainly taken a lot of the wind out of his sails. And I consider this a very good thing. I think it's very good. So
a distant chink of daylight, which is a rarity. I'll take it.
Yes. No, I absolutely.
Well, that was our second news brief in a short period of time, listeners. Thanks for tuning in to listen, and we will be back with you as soon as we can be with probably another one of these. Frankly, because give it a couple of days, there'll be another 17 huge dramatic news stories to talk about. But maybe one of these days, something a bit more substantial than just us man-facting our way through the news of the day. But this is all we can give you at the moment. But so take it or leave it. And if you're listening to this now at the end of presumably you took it. So good for you. Well done. That was I Don't Speak German. Thanks for listening. Follow us in all the places you usually follow podcasts. For now, at least, we're both still on Twitter. I'm @_Jack_Graham_, and Daniel is @Daniel E. Harper. And the show's Twitter is @IDSGpod. If you want to help us do the work we do and gain a few benefits along the way, we both have Patreons. And our theme music is by Loon the Band.